from President Trump in the Rose Garden. He's going to unveil his new plan to overhaul our country's immigration system. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, and this is the Daily Briefing. The president calling on Congress to take up immigration reform as the Border Patrol grapples with a surge of families seeking asylum. The proposed changes include fewer visas for residents' family members, more merit and education-based visas, and enhanced screening at the border. The plan would also maintain current levels of legal immigration. Joining me now, White House Director of Strategic Communications, Mercedes Schlapp, on a beautiful day in Washington, D.C. So green there. I know you've had a lot of rain. All right, Mercy, tell me what the goal is here, to launch this and get Congress to pass it before the end of this Congress?
You know, I think the goal here is to start this conversation by proposing a strong plan, a common sense immigration reform plan that will focus on stopping illegal immigration, securing the border, and also ensuring that we're able to revamp and modernize our very outdated immigration system. And it would shift from what we see right now. It's an unbalanced immigration system. We want to move it towards the fact that we can focus on merit-based, on skills, on employment, attracting talent here to the United States. And that would be the priority of this immigration plan.
Speaker Pelosi, she zeroed in earlier today on that word, merit. I'm sure everyone's going to hear a lot about this in the future. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
It is really a condescending word. Are they saying family is without merit? Are they saying most of the people who have ever come to the United States in the history of our country are without merit because they don't have an engineering degree? Certainly, we want to attract the best in our country, to our country, and that includes many people from many parts of society.
I imagine the president's going to have to convince people to put aside their thinking. I'm thinking about my great-grandparents that came in the 1880s. They never would have made the cut if America had had this type of system. But is he going to try to convince people that it's time to change that?
Well, I think it's important to understand that the current system right now, it is unbalanced. See, the only way you can come into the country, the vast majority of these numbers, it's because you have a family tie. So that means that if you don't have a relative here in the United States, you're not going to get in unless you come in illegally. So this is about making sure that we protect the immediate families, making sure that if an individual is here and is working and has a green card, is able to bring their spouse, to bring their children, to make sure we protect that immediate family. So that's important. Here what we're trying to do is just balance it out a little better, because what we're seeing right now is the preference is random selection. We have the diversity lottery visa systems program, which, as we know, is about 55,000 of these visas that don't have anything to do with qualifications or criteria that would be skill-based. And so what do we have now? We want to stay competitive as an economy. How can we do that? We want to make sure that we get those individuals with skills, with English proficiency, with the ability to meet certain criteria like a point system. And what we have done is that we've looked at the Canadian system, the Australian system, the New Zealand system, to be able to come up with the best practices to revamp this immigration system.
Let me ask you about the, so President Trump, I think it was earlier this month, agreed to do these H-2B visas, these temporary visas. These are 30,000, I guess, that would increase foreign workers that could be able to come here to work, to make up for jobs that are going wanting and unfilled. Will he talk about that today as part of this plan? Because that's not necessarily skills-based.
Right. I think for the temporary worker visas, that's not what we're focused on right now. We are looking at that internally, coming up with administrative solutions to those temporary visas. Our focus right now are on the green cards. It's at 1.1 million green cards right now that, as we know, it's a bit of a random selection. And again, you have to have a family tie. Here, we're opening up and providing broader access across the globe and being able to attract more diversity in terms of individuals who will be able to apply to come in and receive a green card. So again, we've seen even Democrats who have agreed with a merit-based system in the past. And we want to encourage that discussion and focus in on what matters, which is that of addressing the border security first and foremost, because what we are seeing at the border is chaotic, and the president has done everything he can to help our Border Patrol agents.
Could I ask
but
you,
as we know, we need a legislative fix.
Exactly, because he can't do this all on his own by executive
That's
action.
right.
Can I just ask one last question? Because as I understand it, the whole DACA issue, Dreamers, not going to be addressed in this particular rollout. Why is that?
Well, I think we're starting this off to unify the Republican Party. This was a conversation of what we all can come to agreement with and what we are for. Obviously, the president in the past, on various occasions, has tried to work with Democrats on a DACA deal. The Democrats have rejected that time and time again. So at this point, we're going to hone in on securing the border. That is a top priority, strengthening our asylum laws, making sure that we're able to eliminate fraud in the asylum cases and quickly process those who actually do have a case for asylum.
Right.
And then part of this as well is ensuring that we're able to update and modernize our immigration system that, as we know, has been outdated for decades.
All right, Mercy Schlapp, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Let's bring in Karl Rove. He's former White House Deputy Chief of Staff and a Fox News contributor. So, Karl, you heard Mercy there explaining what the president's going to try to do today. What do you think about the timing of it and the substance?
Well, I heard Nancy Pelosi attack merit, and I had a moment of deja vu all over again because I heard the same thing in 2007 when John McCain, Ted Kennedy, and President Bush agreed upon a immigration reform package that sounds a lot like, in this instance, several instances of what President Trump is likely to lay out. We've already been down this path before. Yes, we had agreement between Ted Kennedy, whose brother instituted the family unification policy in the 1960s, that the system was out of balance, that we needed to move the dial was way too much over on family unification, and we needed to move it back towards merit. And that's what it sounds like the president is doing here. He's not wiping out family unification, but he's having a points system, much like Australia and Canada, which is what the 2007 law was based on, that puts a greater emphasis on education, work experience, and English proficiency, and doesn't wipe out family. In fact, if you get rid of the visa lottery, which is just sort of a random, if you want to come to the United States, sign up in a lottery. If you get rid of the visa lottery, then you could probably keep the number of family unifications roughly stable, but you'll have more people who are coming here because of merit, because they have education, work experience, and English proficiency.
Take a listen to Senators Durbin and Blumenthal. They're already coming out against it.
I can tell you that the President's immigration plan will be received with skepticism. For 2 years, we've tried to work with this President on the issue of immigration, even putting together a bipartisan coalition in the Senate, and the President stopped us. The President needs to roll up his sleeves and face the reality of immigration rather than make speeches to his loyal supporters.
It is despicable demagoguery designed simply to appeal to Donald Trump's base and prepare for the 2020 election.
That sounds pretty political. And then in Political Playbook today, basically the last line of this one piece was that this thing is deader than a doornail, which doesn't really sound like there's going to be a lot of cooperation.
Yeah. Well, I'd say two things. To Senator Durbin, I'd say, you mentioned 2 years. If this issue is so important to solve, why was it in 2009 and 10 when you, as a leader in the Democratic Senate majority, had 60 votes in the Senate, didn't you move a bill at all? So please, don't lecture us about he hasn't done anything in 2 years. You had 2 years where you could have snapped your fingers and solved this problem. Please put it aside.
They did
and work the
Obamacare
issue.
instead.
Yeah, and Senator Blumenthal, let me say to you, would you have had the guts to tell Ted Kennedy that he was doing something despicable when he sat down and worked out a reform with regard to immigration that looks substantially like what the president is proposing? I'd say to the Democrats, if you want to solve the problem of the people who are here in America already, and if you want to resolve the problem of the Dreamers, grab this as the first offer and sit down and try and get something done. Don't sit here and play politics with it. You had your chance to do it when you were totally in control in 9 and 10, and you didn't do anything. Please put the interests of the country first and stop the partisan politics.
And one last quick thing for you, Karl. Mercy said that this is an attempt to try to unify the Republican Party around a set of principles. Do you think that'll work?
Well, the president has the ability to cajole and to encourage and persuade. I'd rather that they'd said this is what the president believes has to be part of any immigration reform. We're willing to sit down and talk with anybody to get this problem resolved, but the president's making a first offer, and let's go forward. But, he needs to have a unified Republican Party. My sense is can largely get the party unified around these, but to get something done, you have to resolve two big issues: the Dreamers and the people who are here already illegally.
Yeah.
And got to have conversations about them. This was a good way to begin the conversation.
All right, Karl Rove, the president's speaking in less than 20 minutes now, so we'll catch up with you in a little bit. Thank you. The Trump administration working quickly to declassify images that they say show Iranian missiles being transported in the Persian Gulf. Both National Security Advisor John Bolton and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo raising concerns about the situation. The president said this earlier about the prospect of war.
Mr. President, are we going to war with Iran? Hope not.
Jennifer Griffin is live from the Pentagon with more on this story. Jennifer.
Well, Dana, after coming under pressure to support claims that the Iranian threat to U.S. forces is real and justifies a military buildup, U.S. officials say they are in the process of declassifying those satellite photos. They say they show cruise missiles aboard small Iranian vessels. U.S. officials have taken great pains to emphasize the American forces sent to the Middle East, including an aircraft carrier and strategic bombers, are to deter Iran, not to start a war, as you heard the president say. Something President Trump also reiterated before meeting the Swiss president at the White House today. It's notable that since the U.S. does not have an embassy in Tehran and has not since the 1979 revolution, that the Swiss serve as the U.S. representatives to Tehran. Democrats on Capitol Hill are demanding briefings from the acting defense secretary and chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who are not planning to do so until next week.
Speculation that the president is coming up with an idea of 120,000 of armed military preparing for invasion. What in the world is going on here? The Constitution requires this decision to be made by Congress, not by this president. And I can tell you, if he thinks he's going to engage us in another Middle Eastern war, there are a lot of people who resist it. I hope some of his own party will tell him that.
I like what I hear from the president, that he has no appetite for this, even though some of his supporters are rattling sabers.
Earlier this week, U.S. forces in the region were placed on high alert, and the State Department announced it was reducing staff at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, which many say is exactly the retreat that the Iranians are trying to provoke. Also, Dana, don't forget, just 4 years ago, the U.S. Navy saw similar boats with Iranian missiles on board headed to Yemen. They tracked them with another aircraft carrier, and the Iranian boats turned around. Dana?
Indeed they did. Thank you, Jennifer. Well, he is the Democratic governor of a red state, and now he has his eye on the Oval Office. I'll ask Montana's Steve Bullock what sets him apart from the rest of the 2020 candidates. Plus, Alabama's controversial abortion bill just signed into law, but the near-total ban may never even take effect. Abortion law in the country, a near-total ban after Governor Ivey signed the measure last night, but the American Civil Liberties Union is among the groups vowing to mount a legal challenge.
Should be extraordinarily concerned. What we're seeing is a national coordinated effort to take away women's ability to make their own personal health care decisions.
Jonathan Seri is following the story live from Atlanta. Jonathan.
Hey, Dana, the ACLU and Planned Parenthood say they plan to initiate a lawsuit in an attempt to block this Alabama law before it takes effect 6 months from now. Yesterday, Republican Governor Kay Ivey signed a bill making it a Class A felony for doctors to provide abortions, except in cases where the woman's life is in danger. The new law makes no exceptions for rape or incest and is scheduled to take effect in 6 months. The governor explained in a written statement, many Americans, myself included, disagreed when Roe v. Wade was handed down in 1973. The sponsors of this bill believe that it is time once again for the U.S. Supreme Court to revisit this important matter, and they believe this act may bring about the best opportunity for this to occur. Well, the ACLU responded to Ivey's actions, saying by signing this bill, the governor and her colleagues in the state legislature have decided to waste millions of Alabama taxpayer dollars in order to defend a bill that is simply a political effort to overturn 46 years of precedent that has followed the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision. We will not allow that to happen, and we will see them in court. In addition to potential legal challenges, Dana, these laws are galvanizing support on both sides of the abortion debate, and you are going to be hearing a lot more of this going into the 2020 presidential campaign. Dana?
There's no doubt about that, Jonathan. Thank you. Minutes away now from the president's plan for immigration reform, the changes he wants to make to the current system. Plus, he is one of many Democrats looking to replace Trump in the Oval Office. So how would Montana Governor Steve Bullock handle border security and other hot-button issues? He tells me next. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announcing this morning he is entering the 2020 race for president, becoming the 23rd to seek the Democratic nomination. I spoke with the 22nd Montana Governor Steve Bullock, who revealed on Tuesday that he too is joining the crowded field. Governor Bullock, welcome to New York.
Dana, it's great to be with you for sure.
I grew up in Wyoming, Colorado. You're from Montana. And I wonder about your thinking about how you are different in this group of 24, now 25, I think, with Bill de Blasio announcing that he's going to run for president as well. How does coming from Montana help you stand apart in this race?
Yeah, I mean, I think being raised in a place like Montana and governing there, where really I have to travel through that whole 147,000 square mile state. You know, I don't begin by saying, oh, these are pockets of blue, these are pockets of red. I was the only Democrat in the country to get reelected in a state where Trump won. I got reelected in 2016 by 4 points when he won by 20.
What do you put that down to?
You know, I put it down to that I both got out, I talked to people about what matters to them, and that's what their jobs are, what their quality of life is. Do they have a safe community? Do they have clean air and clean water? Those sort of values, like can you build a better world for your kids and grandkids?
Are there examples of other red states, so states that President Trump won in 2016, that you think if you were to get the nomination for the Democrats that you might be able to flip as well?
You bet. Well, and where I've traveled quite a bit. I mean, if you go to places like Michigan or Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, I was in Ohio, Arizona, it's just a few. Also, I went to places like Arkansas. I think what Democrats need to do, though, is be making their case everywhere. It's not just simple math. It's like we can't lose big parts of the country.
So let me ask you about the economy. It is true most presidents do get reelected, and if you have a good economy, but we might be in a different situation now, but we just had a Fox News poll that came out today that said that 47% of people think the economy is excellent or good. And so those numbers are about the same. Nothing changes too much in these numbers. And that 48% of people approve of the way President Trump is handling the economy. How could you improve on that?
Well, I think 44% of America right now, if you had an emergency and you needed $400, they wouldn't necessarily have it. When I was a kid growing up in the 70s, single-parent household, 90% of 30-year-olds were doing better than their parents. Today, it's only half. And you turn around and say, look at these last tax cuts. Companies like Amazon, $10 billion in profits, didn't pay anything. The secretary down at the bank, or the assistant down at the bank, she paid more in taxes than they did. So I think that it's not, look, the economy is booming in so many respects. But for 40 years, so this isn't just Donald Trump, 40 years, the average American, if you look at in real terms, they haven't really gotten a wage.
Would you keep the Trump tax cuts in place?
I would change some of it, for sure. I mean, I think that one of the things we saw last year, $1 trillion of stock buybacks, that wasn't going for the person that cleans the bank. It's going for the head of the bank. You look at the overall corporate rate, 21%. I think you could have put it at 25. Nobody was even asking.
And you don't think that would hurt the economic momentum we have now?
Well, it's this strange world where we used to care about deficits, right? Now we have 1.6 trillion put on our kids and grandkids.
Do you care about those things? Like, where are you worried about the spending, entitlement spending, and Social Security, Medicare?
As governor, I've always had to balance a budget. And I think that's something that we bring differently, for sure.
What about the tariffs affecting farmers in some places? Would you keep these tariffs in place? Do you agree with President Trump and being tough with China?
I absolutely agree on being tough on China. The way that he's approaching it, it's not working for anybody. I mean, if you're a producer, all of a sudden you're losing your market. A payment from Department of Agriculture isn't going to get that market share back once that's gone. So you're getting hit on that side, and also the tariffs on steel and aluminum make it so your inputs, buying that tractor is that much more expensive. Every family.
So do you think, and so that's like something that you could take to Michigan, Wisconsin?
Oh, I think you can. I mean, if we go 25% on China, every family in America will be paying $2,000 more for goods. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't be darn strong on China, but you can't do it just with the blunt instrument of tariffs.
What about a lot of the wins that you had that were bipartisan in Montana were on issues that weren't that polarizing? President Trump's going to be giving a big speech on immigration. Like, do you think there's a crisis at the border that you would seek to tackle?
I think that fundamentally, I mean, Democrats, or at least I believe in border security. I believe in keeping families safe. I believe in orderly immigration, cutting like aid to Central America and not allowing the even possibility of trying to apply the pilot program that used to be in Central America to apply for asylum.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fundamentally is going to make the problem worse, not better.
The Democrats upset you're not going to run for Senate in Montana. If this doesn't go your way on the presidential front, a few months from now, would you change your mind and run for Senate?
You know, to me, this was never an either or. I was never going to run for Senate. I think we're going to have some real good candidates in 2020, and it's going to be a good race.
So someone I know said that you are their top sleeper candidate if Biden falters. Is that where you want to be?
No, you know, it's a big field. I'm only getting in now.
You have enough time to make the debate?
I do.
Okay.
I sure hope I do.
All right.
Because I think it's an important voice to be there.
Well, we're happy that you came on Fox News. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Dana.
It's Governor Steve Bullock of Montana. And next, President Trump about to reveal his plan for immigration reform, what he wants to focus on when considering who can enter the country legally. A very interesting finding about the 2020 White House race and the man who is tops with women when it comes to campaign donations. You will be surprised to learn who it is. As we wait for the president to announce his new immigration plan, the migrants most likely to be affected are bracing for major changes. National correspondent William Lajeunesse is at the country's busiest land border crossing. That's in San Ysidro, California. So, William, how will the president's expected immigration plan impact what happens at the border where you are?
Well, let's talk border security first. You're right, Dana. Say number one, port of entry. So this is the busiest land border in the U.S., 20,000 pedestrians, 70,000 cars. Right now, only a fraction of those get screened. The president wants them all to get screened. Secondly, the fence, right? 2,000-mile border, only a third of that has about a pedestrian fence. The president says there are about 33 points along the border that require more fencing, more sensors, more cameras. He wants operational control. If you can't have that, you want something called situational awareness, so you know what's coming across, even if though you can't stop it. That would be preferred. Number three, asylum seekers and the loopholes, right? So you have all these people. He wants them to apply south of the border, stay in Mexico, and if they are detained in the United States, they should remain in custody until their case is adjudicated. That means at least 60 days. But this is a plan, not a bill, so we don't have all the specifics. Let's go to the focus. Legal immigration. Right now, the top three sending countries of 1.1 million legal immigrants are Mexico, India, and China. Right now, the president says, I want to change that. So it started in 1960, renewed in 1990, change the national immigration focus from family reunification to more educated, more skilled, a merit-based point system. For instance, looking at all these legal permanent residents, right now they're waiting their turn overseas, they get their green card, and then after 5 years, they can apply for their spouses. We'll go to you back in.
William, thank you. We're going to pause for one moment to let our Fox stations join us. This is Fox News coverage of President Trump's speech on an overhaul to the immigration system. I'm Dana Perino in New York. Here's the president.
We're here on this very beautiful spring day in the Rose Garden to unveil our plan to create a fair, modern, and lawful system of immigration for the United States. And it's about time. If adopted, our plan will transform America's immigration system into the pride of our nation and the envy of the modern world. Our proposal builds upon our nation's rich history of immigration while strengthening the bonds of citizenship that bind us together as a national family. Throughout our history, we have proudly welcomed newcomers to our shores. Out of many people, from many places, we have forged one people and one nation under God, and we're very proud of it. We share the same home, we share the same destiny, and we pledge allegiance to the same great American flag. Our policies have turbocharged our economy. Now we must implement an immigration system that will allow our citizens to prosper for generations to come. Today we are presenting a clear contrast. Democrats are proposing open borders, lower wages, and frankly, lawless chaos. We are proposing an immigration plan that puts the jobs, wages, and safety of American workers first. Our proposal is pro-American, pro-immigrant, and pro-worker. It's just common sense. It will help all of our people, including millions of devoted immigrants, to achieve the American dream. We are grateful to be joined this afternoon by a tremendous number of people from the House, the Senate, and my cabinet. And I love you all, but I won't introduce you all because I'll be here all day long. But you're all here. Our plan achieves two critical goals. First, it stops illegal immigration and fully secures the border. And second, it establishes a new legal immigration system that protects American wages, promotes American values, and attracts the best and brightest from all around the world. The proposal begins with the most complete and effective border security package ever assembled by our country or any other country for that matter. So important. This plan was not developed, I'm sorry to say, by politicians. We have a lot of politicians. But you respect the people and you know the people that have developed this plan. It was designed with significant input from our great law enforcement professionals to detail what they need to make our border, which is 100% operationally secure, 100%. Everyone agrees that the physical infrastructure on the border and the ports of entry is gravely underfunded and woefully inadequate. We scan only a small fraction of the vehicles, goods, and all of the other things coming across, including people. And sadly, the drugs pour across our border. We're going to stop it. Investment in technology will ensure we scan 100% the flow of drugs and contraband while speeding up legal trade and commerce. It's the most heavily traded monetarily border anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. To make certain that we are constantly making the upgrades we need, our proposal creates a permanent and self-sustaining border security trust fund. This will be financed by the fees and revenues generated at the border crossings itself. Importantly, we're already building the wall, and we should have close to 400 miles built by the end of next year, and probably even more than that. It's going up very rapidly. And I want to thank the Army Corps of Engineers who are doing a fantastic job on the wall. And that's a wall that is desperately needed. As we close the gaps in our physical framework, we must also close the gaps in our legal framework. Critical to ending the border crisis is removing all incentives for smuggling women and children. Current law, that's right. That's right. Women and children. People have no idea how bad it is unless you're there and unless you are a member of law enforcement. They see it every day and they can't believe what they see. Current law and federal court rulings encourage criminal organizations to smuggle children across the border. The tragic result is that 65% of all border crossers this year were either minors or adults traveling with minors. Our plan will change the law to stop the flood of child smuggling and to humanely reunite unaccompanied children with their families back home, and rapidly, as soon as possible. We must also restore the integrity of our broken asylum system. Our nation has a proud history of affording protection to those fleeing government persecutions. Unfortunately, legitimate asylum seekers are being displaced by those lodging frivolous claims. These are frivolous claims to gain admission into our country. Asylum abuse also strains our public school systems, our hospitals and local shelters, using funds that we should and that have to go to elderly veterans, at-risk youth, Americans in poverty, and those in genuine need of protection. We're using the funds that should be going to them, and that shouldn't happen, and it's not going to happen in a very short period of time. Have to get this approved. My plan expedites relief for legitimate asylum seekers by screening out the meritless claims. If you have a proper claim, you will quickly be admitted. If you don't, you will promptly be returned home. Crucially, our plan closes loopholes in federal law to make clear that gang members and criminals are inadmissible. These are some of the worst people anywhere in the world, MS-13 and others. Inadmissible, not coming in. We're taking them out all the time by the thousands a year, but they come in. They are no longer admissible. And for criminals already here, we will ensure their swift deportation. We will keep our communities safe. Americans can have complete and total confidence that under this plan, the borders will finally be fully and totally secured. And I know a number of our Republican friends and others, Lindsay, I see you sitting right there, and Steve, you're working on a plan, an immediate plan, a smaller plan, but a very immediate plan to stop it as of this afternoon. So as fast as you can get something done. This is the big, beautiful, bold plan, but we need something very quickly, and if you can get it done, that would be fantastic. Okay? Thank you. Appreciate you working on it. A topic of less discussion in national media, but of vital importance to our country, is our legal immigration system itself. Our plan includes a sweeping modernization of our dysfunctional legal immigration process. It is totally dysfunctional. The system will finally be fair, transparent, and promote equality and opportunity for all. Every year, we admit 1.1 million immigrants as permanent legal residents. These green card holders get lifetime authorization to live and work here and a 5-year path to American citizenship. This is the most prized citizenship anywhere in the world by far. Currently, 66% of legal immigrants come here on the basis of random chance. They're admitted solely because they have a relative in the United States, and it doesn't really matter who that relative is. Another 21% of immigrants are issued either by random lottery or because they're fortunate enough to be selected for humanitarian relief. Random selection is contrary to American values and blocks out many qualified potential immigrants from around the world who have much to contribute. While countless, and you wouldn't believe how many countries like Canada create a clear path for top talent, America does not. Under the senseless rules of the current system, we're not able to give preference to a doctor, a researcher, a student who graduated #1 in his class from the finest colleges in the world. Anybody, we're not able to take care of it. We're not able to make those incredible breakthroughs. If somebody graduates top of their class from the best college, sorry, go back to your country. We want to keep them here. Companies are moving offices to other countries because our immigration rules prevent them from retaining highly skilled and even, if I might, totally brilliant people. We discriminate against genius. We discriminate against brilliance. We won't anymore once we get this passed, and we hope to get it passed as soon as possible. Some of the most skilled students at our world-class universities are going back home because they have no relatives to sponsor them here in the United States, and that's the only way. We want these exceptional students and workers to stay and flourish and thrive in America. Thank you. As a result of our broken rules, the annual green card flow is mostly low-wage and low-skilled. Newcomers compete for jobs against the most vulnerable Americans and put pressure on our social safety welfare programs. Only 12% of legal immigrants are selected based on skill or based on merit. In countries like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and others, that number is closer to 60 and even 70 and 75% in some cases. The biggest change we make is to increase the proportion of highly skilled immigration from 12% to 57%, and we'd like to even see if we can go higher. This will bring us in line with other countries and make us globally competitive. At the same time, we prioritize the immediate.
Joe Biden under fire with progressive in his own party going after him now, the impact this could have on the 2020 race. Plus, 2 journalists are now free after being imprisoned by one of the most repressive regimes on earth. Congressional subpoena for documents related to the Mueller report, escalating the standoff between President Trump and House Democrats. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is live on the North Lawn with more. John, this isn't even about him appearing in person. It's just about documents at this point.
Yeah, correct. And this is yet another subpoena fight that's brewing between the White House and the folks up on Capitol Hill. This morning, 10 a.m. was the deadline for Don McGahn to submit documents to the House Judiciary Committee in connection with the Mueller report and the testimony that McGahn gave to Mueller. But instead of getting documents from McGahn, what Gerald Nadler, the House Judiciary Committee chairman, got was a letter from Pat Cipollone, who is the White House counsel, which said in part, quote, "The White House records remain legally protected from disclosure under long-standing constitutional principles because they implicate significant executive branch confidentiality interests and executive privilege. Cipollone instructed Nadler's committee to direct any further requests for documents to the White House." And White House officials saying it's ironic that Democrats are demanding new information when they haven't even bothered to look at the less redacted version of the Mueller report that's been on Capitol Hill for weeks. Here's what Hogan Gidley said earlier today.
McGahn does not have the legal right to disclose these documents, and Jerry Nadler does not have the legal right to see them. Jerry Nadler knows this. This is all about playing politics, and as John just mentioned, 99% of this report, unredacted, sits right now in a SCIF, a secure location. Not one single Democrat has gone to read it yet, and it's because the Democrats don't care about getting information. They care about getting this president.
Now, as far as what McGahn's thinking is, in a letter to Nadler, McGahn's attorney Bill Burke writes, quote, where co-equal branches of government are making contradictory demands on Mr. McGahn concerning the same set of documents, the appropriate response for Mr. McGahn is to maintain the status quo unless and until the committee and the executive branch can reach an accommodation. Now, this letter, as you pointed out at the top, Dana, only covers the documents. This does not cover McGahn's scheduled appearance before the House Judiciary Committee on May the 21st. As to which way the White House is going to go on that, I'm told that they have not yet